Today we are looking at something most people assume is simple, but isn't. The roots of modern terrorism in the Middle East. Groups like Hamas and Hezbollah are often seen by critics as religiously driven, born purely of an extreme interpretation of Islam. But the record shows a more complicated story. Their methods of violence were shaped by outside powers, first by the Soviet Union, then by Iran, and today with echoes in Russia and China. And that matters, because once you see terrorism not as theology, but as a technology of violence, the whole picture changes. Welcome to Global Risk Profile, where we break down the headlines that matter and the ones that should. In the 20th century, the Soviet Union deliberately engineered terrorism. The Mitrokhin archive records show that the KGB began secret arms deliveries to the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, in 1970, using Palestinian terrorists as proxies. Former Romanian intelligence chief Ion Pacepa was blunt. The PLO was dreamt by the KGB. Its 1964 charter was drafted in Moscow. Alexander Sakharovsky, the KGB's foreign intelligence chief, told his staff, "In today's world where nuclear arms have made military force obsolete, terrorism should become our main weapon." This wasn't religious, it was geopolitical. The USSR saw Palestinian groups as a cheap, deniable way to hit and destabilize the West and Israel. And it wasn't just weapons and training. Soviet disinformation was part of the package. Yuri Andropov, KGB chief, launched an operation to flood the Middle East with anti-American and anti-Semitic propaganda, including sponsoring the first Arabic translation of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The technology of terrorism was designed, packaged, and exported. So where do more recent terrorist organizations like Hamas fit in? Hamas wasn't founded by Moscow. It was born in 1987 out of the Muslim Brotherhood in Gaza. But by then, the toolkit was already lying on the table and used by various groups and organizations. Hamas copied the dual structure, political wing plus armed wing, pioneered by Soviet-trained Palestinian groups. Its early fighters trained in Lebanon in camps originally staffed with Warsaw Pact advisors. Its propaganda machine, martyrdom posters, underground press, disinformation, echoed methods taught in East Berlin and Prague. Then came Iran's Revolutionary Guard, adding suicide bombings, rockets, and clandestine finance. So Hamas's operational DNA is a hybrid. There is so-called religious rhetoric, fused with a Cold War revolutionary playbook. Here's the shift we need to make. Terrorism isn't theology, it's technology. And like any technology, it requires conditions to be adopted. In particular, 1. Leaders without conscience, sociopaths who treat people as pawns. And 2. Followers conditioned through propaganda, often starting with real grievances, but driven to false, destructive conclusions. That is true in Gaza today, and it was true in the communist revolutions of the 20th century. Speaking of communism, Felix Dzerzhinsky, head of Lenin's Cheka, the KGB's predecessor, said in 1918, "We stand for organizing terror. This frankly should be admitted." Before 1917, Bolsheviks used assassination, underground cells, and agitation. After seizing power, the same tools became the Cheka, gulags, etc. Mao's China, all the way till today, repeated the pattern. Guerrilla propaganda before 1949, then struggle sessions and cultural revolution purges after victory. Kim Il-sung in North Korea turned guerrilla habits into a permanent system of cells, indoctrination, and purges. The pattern is identical. Leaders without conscience, followers brainwashed by grievance, and the technology of violence and deceit, deployed first to seize power and then to rule. Taking a step back, we can see 3 pillars underpinning the characteristics of these regimes. Number 1, lies and deception. Communist regimes live by lies. Promises of peace and land delivering famine and dictatorship. Hamas promises dignity and liberation while delivering fear and destruction. Number 2, cruelty and disregard for life. Stalin's gulags, Mao's famines, Kim's purges, cruelty was deliberate policy. Suicide bombings, rockets into cities, hostage-taking, terror as strategy, not accident. And 3, endless struggle, permanent revolution, continuous class struggle, eternal resistance. Victory is never allowed because the system survives only by manufacturing new enemies. When we strip away the banners, we see the same 3 pillars every time. And here is the tragedy. Some of the most miserable victims are the perpetrators themselves. Mao's Red Guards were teenagers denouncing their parents, later discarded. Soviet youths cheering purges only to vanish into gulags. And Hamas fighters raised from childhood to believe martyrdom is their only dignity. These people weren't born cruel. They were deceived. That doesn't excuse the crimes, but it explains how systems can consume entire generations. So how do we look at Gaza? With clarity. It is ruled by a terror organization built on deception, cruelty, and endless struggle. With discernment, many who fight for it or cheer for it are also victims of the system. And with steadiness, condemning Hamas is not condemning religion, Palestinians, or Muslims. The Soviet Union may be gone, but its methods didn't die. As one recent study put it, the Soviet Union indisputably engineered modern Islamic terrorism by infiltrating and co-opting religious frameworks, radicalizing them into an army of destroyers against the West. The playbook is alive. And yet, there is hope. In 2004, the 9 commentaries on the Communist Party began circulating in China. It exposed the CCP's lies, cruelty, and endless struggle. Out of that came the Tuareg movement, tens of millions renouncing their party membership and membership in youth organizations. Today, the number claimed is 400 million withdrawals. That doesn't mean the CCP has fallen, but it proves something vital. Even in a totalizing system, individuals can reclaim their conscience. They can quietly say, I don't consent to this anymore. That's the sliver of hope that the individuals anywhere, in China, in Gaza, in Russia, and in the West, can say no to lies, no to cruelty, and no to endless struggle. So when you hear about Hamas, Hezbollah, or any group that thrives on terror, don't stop at the surface. Don't think it's simply extreme Islam or grievance or nationalism. Look at the pillars underneath: lies, cruelty, and endless struggle. That's the technology of violence, born in communist revolutions, exported through the Cold War, and still alive today. But also remember, technology is not destiny. People can unplug from it. They can choose conscience over cruelty. And when they do, even silently, that's where the future begins. That's it for this episode of Global Risk Profile. If you found this useful, thoughtful, or just different, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Remember, the headlines may change, but the deeper patterns rarely do. Thanks for listening, and stay sharp.